Back to the biggest story of the day. Welcome back. As President Trump and Republican lawmakers continue to celebrate the most sweeping tax overhaul since the 80s, many Americans are wondering what exactly this bill does for them. The legislation delivers deep and permanent cuts for corporations while delivering only temporary tax cuts for individual Americans. That's the big deal. It's separate. According to the Nonpartisan Tax Policy Center, taxpayers earning less than $25,000 a year would receive an average tax cut of $60. Those earning between $49,000 and $86,000 a year would get an average cut of $900, and those earning between $300,000 and $700,000 would receive an average cut of $13,000. President Trump repeatedly promised that this would not hurt the middle class, but would hurt him, Donald Trump. He actually said that. Let's listen.
Tax reform will protect low-income and middle-income households, not the wealthy and well-connected.
The rich will not be gaining at all with this plan. We're looking for the middle class, and we're looking for jobs. I think the wealthy will be pretty much where they are. Pretty much where they are.
In all fairness, this is going to cost me a fortune, this thing. Believe me. This is not good for me. Me, it's not so. I have some very wealthy friends. Not so happy with me, but that's okay.
Well, the bill actually does the opposite of what he said, slashing corporate rates from 35% down to 21%. That's a big help to the rich. By one estimate, more than half of all Americans, 53%, would actually end up paying more in taxes by 2027. And finally, the bill will get rid of Obamacare's individual mandate, which, according to the Congressional Budget Office, will increase premiums and leave 13 million people out in the cold. 13 million people out in the cold because of this tax cut without any health care. And despite all that, can Republicans persuade the general public that this bill is a good deal? For more, I'm joined by Dave Jolly. He's a former Republican congressman from Florida, and Donna Edwards, former Democratic congresswoman from Maryland. You two have been matched up before, so let's see what you think. Donna, you're with here, Congresswoman. You're here now. I don't see the winning thrill here for regular people, and I mean by regular, anybody up to 100 and some in joint incomes. I don't see what they're cheering about. $80. I mean, after all this hoopla and Mar-a-Lago delight. I mean, who's benefiting here?
Well, and if you look at your chart, middle income earners, you're talking about, $80 a month. I mean, when I was raising my son, I could buy one pair of shoes, actually two pairs of shoes a month for $80 because he changed shoes all the time. And so this is really not going to be
if you're going
anything.
to the outlets, sure,
that's right.
You can do that.
And so, I think, you look at health care. 13 million people are going to be left without, but you didn't include the number of people whose premiums are going to skyrocket because of what they've done. Exactly. And so, this is a disaster.
Let me explain. David, you've been a Republican. You probably still are. What is it that makes Republicans Republicans? Most Republicans who vote Republican, some of them are regular people, working people. In fact, they like Trump. They're not benefiting from being Republican. I mean, the old story was if you want to live like a Republican, vote like a Democrat. I'm sure you won't agree with that, but it is an argument. Your thoughts? Why do regular income people who are Republican like this tax cut?
Well, so listen, and Donald Trump lied in all of the entry into this segment. Those are all lies. We know that. At the end of the day, though, this is very intriguing, Chris, because this tax bill actually does reduce taxes for virtually everybody. Some of them expire. But the important thing here is why is it so unpopular? And I think it's so unpopular because a year into the Trump administration, there's a historic level of distrust for the Republican Party.
Go ahead.
There's a historic level of distrust for the Republican Party right now. We see that in the generic ballot test.
Well, what about this $60? You say everybody gets something, but $60 a year isn't a whole lot.
No, of course it isn't, which is why the tax plan's pulling at about 25 or 30%. Here's what Republicans are banking on. This is historic reform for the corporate community. It is not historic reform for the individual taxpayers. We know that. But what we saw today is very dangerous for Democrats, and it's this. This was a unifying moment for Republicans. And secondly, all elections are about contrast. And going into 2018, Republicans are now going to say it's less important that they cut your taxes. It's more important that Democrats want to raise your taxes. They're going to try to pin this week's votes in the House and Senate on every Democrat, saying Democrats voted for higher taxes or for lower taxes. Okay. And in a 28-second commercial, that works.
How's it going to do? Donna, you running for office again. You're going to have to face the voters, and if the Republicans say you, in effect, voted to raise taxes because you voted against a tax cut.
Well, I didn't vote for anything, but I'm going to tell you this. What Democrats know is
you're not
that
in the House anymore.
That's right. On state, local income taxes and property taxes, I know that the people where I live, probably half of them are going to see their taxes go up because of that cap. And you look at things like the giveaway, what I call the real estate, the Corker kickback, right? The real estate windfall, $414 billion that actually went to people who voted for that legislation. People are going to find in that 1,100
Republican
pages,
senators.
Republican senators, and they're going to find in that 1,100 pages that there are all sorts of things like that that enrich individuals and enrich the highest income earners, the multimillionaires and multi-billionaires, and it's not going to help them. And when they're going to find that out is next year, because every one of us knows our own paycheck, and we're going to look to find it.
Fair enough. According to a new CNN poll, Republicans face an uphill battle coming into the 2018 midterms. Among registered voters, 56% say they favor a Democrat in their district, while just 38% say they prefer a Republican. That's an 18-point edge for Democrats. David, what do you think about that? Let me go after another question I have for both of you.
Sure.
I mean, the Democratic Party in this country is not as left as the British Labour Party, for example, or some parties in Europe. Who are very much selfish. They don't like the rich make it anymore. They're just always sensitive about that. Americans are sort of like, if I'm doing okay, I'm not mad at anybody. It's sort of a positive view we have in our country. Do you think this time around, however, with a tycoon as president, who seems to be feathering his nest, whose family seems to be sloshing around in money, in luxury, back and forth to Mar-a-Lago, I call them the Romanovs, it's such an image of pigging out that this time the average Joe or Jane is going to say, you know what, I usually don't care how the rich live, but now I don't like the way they're doing it at my expense. Could this be the year next year?
It should be, because the American people are right. Listen, Donald Trump is a president who has lied to the American people since he got into office. Republicans tried to repeal Obamacare without a plan to provide health care to underserved communities. Just last week, we saw a Republican-nominated candidate, Roy Moore, who was accused of sexual offenses against minors. Republicans nominated him. And today we see a tax bill that favors the rich, not the working class. The challenge for Democrats, though, is this, Chris, and Donna knows this. Yes, it's good enough to just be against all of this, and that might win the House in 18. But where is the message from Democrats? Where is Tim Ryan's plan? Where is Tim Ryan's plan to say this is our tax plan? Because at some point, they need to see a contrast and say, I can go with the Democrats because of what they're proposing.
You just threw the football to Donna Edwards. So, Congresswoman, when are we going to have a picture of the Democratic program? We know the Trump one, lots of tax cuts for everybody, mostly for the rich, but that's a program. What's the Democratic program? Is there one for 18? I know it's called a better deal, but is that enough? Is that say enough?
Well, I mean, I think that what Democrats have to do is go out and talk to the American people about protecting and saving their Social Security and Medicare, because we know that that's going to come under attack the next go around in 2018.
Is that the program?
No, I mean, look, we want to create jobs and opportunity.
How are you going to create the jobs?
Investing in infrastructure, for example, investing in domestic manufacturing. These are things that we can do, but we have to have the resources to do it, and you can't be stealing.
I'm completely with you, but I don't have a picture of it like I do with this tax cut. I want a Democratic picture. Please paint it for me sometime. What's it going to look like?
Well, I'm going to take you over every road and pothole and crumbling bridge, and that will paint your picture, because that's where we need to invest.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you, David Jolly, for coming on. And thank you, of course, my friend Donna Edwards of nearby PG County.